But, bro, you know where I'm going to start this, don't you?
Probably.
Yeah, because you were, I would say, 6 inches, and instead of screaming Rolled Star, you could have screamed Space Slurpees or something away. So 6 inches lower on your chest so they could see your shirt, and scream Space Slurpees, Starcade Arcade out loud, and you would have had the most viral. We could have put that on like an Oculus trailer or something, but you had a wild plane ride, to say the least.
I did have a wild plane ride, and it's crazy that I was on a business trip for Starcade Arcade when it happened. It was actually with HTC on their press tour, and so when they heard about it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what did you go through for this game?"
Dude, it was absolutely nuts, and I don't typically throw clips in this, but I'm gonna do like a hard pause and like 5 seconds on this, and just put up the whole clip for the audience to know what we're talking about in full. So that'll go up in 3, 2, 1.
You won't believe what happened on my flight to LA.
The fuck you talking to me like that for, bro? Take me off. I don't give a fuck. I didn't even want to go to Cali. I didn't even want to go to Cali. I didn't even want to go to Cali. The fuck you talking to? I will find your name, date of birth, and address. I will know your social security number before I get off this plane. On my daughter. On that same baby that you see me on the phone with. What? So what the yo, cuz, watch the fuck out. What the fuck out? What's the plane? What they gonna do for you before what's the law gonna do? Yo, mind your business. Mind your business. Cause I will break your neck. Yo, let me just explain something. Hold on. Let me explain something to him. What they gonna do for you before?
It's no need, huh?
You told me one thing, I told you I'm gonna leave it alone. I'll leave it alone. You leave it alone.
Gangsters
Fuck
no
you
need.
talking to?
Gangsters no need, huh? Yo, you about to go. This shit is 2 hours late, man.
I'm trying to leave, bro.
This shit 2 hours late.
And I'm sitting here waiting 2 hours later, bro. Fuck you.
Okay, we're back. But yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, you
let's
should
just
consider yourself lucky, actually, because technically we didn't take any interviews on this, and we were reached out to by like Fox News, CBS. Like, I mean, you can look. There's a lot of news sources, and we're like, you know what? We're just like, we want to talk about our studio and our games, and so we actually didn't take any interviews. But yeah, I can briefly chat about it with you. It was pretty crazy to happen.
Yeah, we don't need to get into like why he's getting upset, but
Yeah,
it was just what I thought was the most fun of it is the entire time I was watching that, I was just like, how many times can I see the Space Slurpee shirt? Like, come on, like this is the best advertised. Like, I wasn't even looking at it like, is this dude gonna flip out? I was like, oh man, start screaming your game, man. Use this.
I know. Yeah, you got to like capture yourself in full view first. And it's just one of those things. I've heard that sometimes the best thing to do is just start recording in case something happens. Because I was actually worried about the flight attendant, because I feel like you always see the videos of where it ends, you know, people getting dragged off, and it's like, well, actually, how did it start? And unfortunately, I was there right when it started.
What was it about? Are you able to share that? Because I mean, I'm assuming it was COVID related.
No, yes and no. I mean, the truth is the media wants to sensationalize that piece, and that was a part of it. Basically, what happened was the guy behind me, he was on his cell phone, he was taking a FaceTime call, and the flight attendant asked him like 4 different times to hang up because, you know, we're getting ready to go take off. All planes in airplane mode. And then between him and the person there that he was with, I think they also kept taking their mask off. So it was like those two things. And the flight attendant was like, hey, are you going to comply to our rules? Because like when you get on an airplane, you agree to follow the rules. And somehow that question was a trigger. And that's when it started, basically where the video begins. So those two things. not hanging up the phone, and then having troubles with the mask.
And then the last question on this, because like I said, this isn't related to anything we should be talking about. Did they steal your phone? How do you swipe your phone in your hand? Like how it ended? Did someone hit your phone or something?
Yeah, so there was a third passenger who came, and I think he intended to like talk down the situation, but it's one of those times where I think he got a little bit too involved and a little even too aggressive himself. So they take my phone at one point, and they're like trying to delete the video, and they're yelling at me to delete the video, and then there's like threats that are made and stuff like that later. I do end up swiping the phone back when they're not paying attention, and I just like walk away. You can see there's like a second video on our TikTok. There's actually like a CNN reporter who was on the plane. He happened to capture some of it, so he shared that footage with me. That's where you see like the second video of me like in the distance. So I just get the phone and then I get out of the situation, kind of step to the side. So I'm glad, I'm not one phone short this week.
Yeah, me too, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten that amazing viral clip. That was pretty awesome. But
and we're like, well, I guess we'll upload it. It's all part of the journey.
Oh yeah, why not? Why not upload it? It's fun. But I'm glad you were safe. That's number one. I was worried when I saw the phone get grabbed. I just want to make sure you were good. You handled it like a pro. So one hell of a way to start your HTC Vive.
Yeah, I think there was like one thing that like made my day. There was one comment and they shared with me, and it was like, the level of chill this guy while filming is the level of chill I want to be my whole life. I was like, cool.
Hey,
at least I did something right.
It rang loud and clear. So, and I've noticed that with all the little stuff you do on Twitter, and all like the quick videos, fun. Like you got that vibe on like almost everything you do with Space Slurpees, and I want to jump right into that because that's ultimately what I want to start with. That was just a little fun trailer, but for the people who have been entertained now by the drama, let them know who you are, and let's talk a little bit about Space Slurpees.
Yeah, absolutely. Alexander Clark, CEO and founder of Starcade Arcade, little game studio. We're making our way up there. We have a few exciting announcements that have been good for us. Space Slurpees is our third title. Star Blazer was our first. It was like a PC VR strategy game. Then Virus Popper, free app we gave start of COVID just to kind of put some good information out there about good hygiene. And then our third game, Space Slurpees, arcade multiplayer title. And it's an interesting title because coming out the gate when we launched a couple months ago, we started with this language of like, competitive gameplay with your friends. And then the feedback we got was, I don't really want to fight with my snakes. I just want to chill in the space and relax. And so that's when we realized that we stumbled on more of a relaxing experience than we realized. And so we've changed the narrative and even changed up some of the gameplay and added different modes to really double down on that, because I think a lot of people just have been stressed out because it's been a crazy year. People going crazy, even on airplanes. And the thing that I love most about our game is I get the feedback that it's just a fun game for people to chill and relax in, and that helps them through the year. And I'm like, okay, I like that.
Two questions to clarify for everyone listening. One is, can you let them know what platforms it's all on? And two, if you give them like just the basic TLDR. So if they were looking for your game or looking for your type of game, how would you pitch it to them so they kind of could know what it was? Because this is going to be better than any store summary is going to do.
Absolutely. So Space Slurpees, the easiest pitch is everybody remembers that old game Snake on their Nokia phone or the popular internet sensation Slither.io. This is a new iteration of that concept. It's Snake in VR. We use the full three-dimensional space. Wherever your hand goes, your snake goes to. The HTC Flow is a little bit different. We'll get into that later. Mm-hmm. And so as for platforms, we hit a lot. I've spent the last few months just porting and trying to get our content out there as many hands as possible. So we're available on Steam, Oculus Store for Rift, App Lab for Oculus. Then we're on Pico, their standalone headset. We're on Nolo VR standalone headset. In terms of arcades, we launched on Springboard this week. We're also on Synthesis VR. And then we are also on the Business Mobile App Store for the HTC's Vive Focus 3. And then, last but not least, if I didn't miss any, then we're on HTC's Vive Flow, which is launching in a couple weeks. Yeah. But no, we're not on the official Oculus Store. We can get into that later.
Yes, mind like a steel trap on that. I mean, it is your job and your baby, but still, that is one hell of a list to rattle off. You're on everything. It's really, yeah. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't even think about it because I didn't connect the two together until you just brought it up. But that what is it, Worm.io? Is that the game?
Slither.io.
So like, yeah. Is that because I'm doing on my Facebook video scrolling that I just dive down into like deep rabbit holes. That has come up. There's one guy who consistently does. I kept passing them, wasn't watching them, and then for some reason they're almost like meditative to watch him now play. Like they're 20-minute videos where I know he's going to die at the end every single time, but I enjoy the ride. Yeah. That seems to have become popular lately. Has that affected Space Slurpees at all?
I've seen that too. I've seen that on TikTok. They're like, you always see the description. It's like, don't gift me because I'll crash. I won't be able to see it with a notification, which is a brilliant clickbaity thing to actually get people to engage. I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but I would say one loose correlation is it's a fun concept that's been around for a long time. And I quite honestly, I don't know why nobody else thought to bring it into VR. And so we definitely wanted to jump on that because it's the type of game we want to play and thought would be fun with some of those mechanics. It's obviously, different when you take it into VR. It's a different type of game. But so I'd say that's true. It helps that it's kind of a universal game concept, that a lot of people are familiar with. And I think that lowers the barrier to entry of jumping in and figuring it out.
And you've been, I feel like I've seen your name and semi-interact with you for a few years at the minimum. It's been a while. What have you seen in the shift? Because I'll give you my personal anecdote of what I've been seeing. And, early VR, I think it was much more hardcore. And that might be why people didn't make easy games like this. And I've seen, of course, a shift, mostly due to the Oculus Quest, that the VR gamer is becoming more and more casual. I don't know if that's just what I've seen. What have you seen from the general audience on how your game's evolved and how people have come into the space and probably given you their thoughts as well? Everyone's very vocal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you describe it like that because that's pretty much exactly how you can see the progression of our games too. If you look at Star Blazer, a title that we're very passionate about and have future plans for, but it's where we started. It's a real-time strategy game that takes place in space. We go the full gamut. There's competitive multiplayer, both matchmaking, as well as you can join up with a friend. And originally, when we got into VR, we were like, this is the type of game we want to play. This is what we want to make. There's not a lot of content out there like it. And we'd heard from lots of sources, a lot of these other big companies and headset manufacturers like, yeah, strategy and, in-depth VR experiences. That's what people want. Well, that's a lie. That's not what they want. It seems like, in actuality, there's a huge passion for these short-lived jump-in, jump-out experiences. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's part of the fun is, you jump into VR and you enjoy a short experience and takes you away for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, however long you play. But we just didn't see a huge appetite for people that wanted to learn complex controls or gameplay. And VR, for developers, it's a rough space because people don't want to learn controls. They don't. Like, if you hand them an indie game on any other platform, PS or Xbox or something like that, they would expect a learning curve, like if it's a strategy game or something like that. But in VR, they're like, I just want to point and click. Why is it not working? And so we evolved our strategy to even taking Star Blazer and saying, all right, let's remove all buttons. Let's make it so you can play the entire game with a single button press. Not taking away the strategy elements, but taking away the control mechanics. And so you can see that transformation of Star Blazer trying to lend itself to easier interactions, but then later Virus Popper, very simple rail game, almost need no button presses, and then Space Slurpies, again, Snake follows your hand, so very few button presses, simplified menu system, trying to move towards very accessible types of games. And so, yeah, I agree. That kind of transition and settling out over these experiences, we've lived it.
Do you think, going into the psyche of that, and I don't think there's a right, there is no true answer, but in your opinion, the shift from being okay with the most complex, blown to hell game on the PC that someone just will pick up and dig through, like Valheim might be a good example, extremely intricate, but tons of people are more than willing to do it. With VR, your experience has been, no, they don't want the intricacies. There's probably a billion reasons, but in your opinion, where is that coming from? Is it just something new that they want to ease into, or what do you think is the main reason?
I think there's three reasons I see. And I think there's solid reasons to talk about if you don't mind me hitting all three.
No, let's do it.
Is because we've thought a lot about this because, again, we've lived it. I'd say one reason is VR is a new medium that's not just filled with gamers. If you look at VR, we have all types of people jumping in on it. We've got, new technology enthusiasts. We've got artists. We've got other content creators that aren't your traditional gamers. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's fantastic. And one of the things that makes the VR space special is how diversified of community you have. But that means they also don't have this history of, I am used to learning 10 buttons and controls and menu systems because I play games all the time, right? They're not coming from that background. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is VR can be overwhelming if we have all these new people, and even if you're taking a gamer who's used to 2D experiences and move them into VR, it's a lot of sensory information. You put a headset on people, and we've been to conventions and seen it, the first thing they do is just like look around. Yep. They don't want to interact because they're just trying to absorb all the information. So then you start layering in game mechanics, it's a lot for the mind to take in, more than even a 2D game where it's just there in front of you. And then the third thing is, I think VR lends itself to such natural interactions that people don't want to press buttons. You know, they want to reach out and touch things. They want their movements to be the controls. And so I felt this pretty intensely when I tried Skyrim for VR on PlayStation. I didn't enjoy it because I was trying to find buttons, but really I just want to, you know, pull back the bow and use my hands for magic. Like, that's the cool stuff, not trying to figure out how to heal myself with a button press. And so I think those are the three reasons I see it. Why, and they're not really bad reasons if you think about it. It's our understanding as developers of the medium, and then like how we need to rebuild our content for the medium.
Is that something that's going to shift closer and closer to the way we've always played games, or do you think VR, even as it evolves, will always slightly stay askew outside of that normalcy that we've always played games in?
I think it needs to stay outside. I think the worst VR games are the 2D games that they ported over, that they didn't spend a lot of time rethinking the controls, and they just overlay some, you know, buttons or menu systems on top of it. I think they're sloppy, and I don't think they're the right experience people want. I think the experiences in VR that really shine are the ones where your movements and the way you interact with the space feel natural. And so you need to think about them separately when it comes to development.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Beat Saber, super hot. Are there even buttons?
Movement.
Like,
nope.
Like, there's not even really buttons for the most part.
Fruit Ninja, like all of, I'd say, the stellar VR experience, Space Slurpies, you know, they're about movement. They're not about buttons.
That makes sense. Which I do want to move over to the hot topic, and that Space Slurpees. You have quite a bit of hands-on experience with the new Vive Flow.
Yes.
So I didn't pull it up like an idiot, but I'm not going to go over the Vive. Hey, I see myself.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go over the specs, everything like that. But what I do want to pick your brain is, first of all, how did you get in touch with HTC and make the decision to try your hand over onto a headset so different than we've ever seen before?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool journey, and I gotta hand it to HTC. Like, I am so grateful that they gave us this opportunity, because we're probably the smallest studio they worked with, especially if we're talking about like launch partners and being their keynote. You know, I'm looking around at, when I went to the press event, I'm looking at the other CEOs, and they all have like multi-million dollars of funding. I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? And so it's amazing that HTC supported this, but it's a pretty cool journey. It actually, our relationship with HTC started with Virus Popper. There's a couple of people on their team, Maria and David from HTC, that they saw the content and they were like, who are these developers? Because this is brilliant. We need to meet them. And so they just like set up a phone call because literally they wanted to chat with us. That's like where that ended. But I guess my advice to anybody is, business is all about relationships, right?
Yes.
And so that's the first time they met us, HTC, like knew our name, was when we built Virus Popper. They just thought it was a great idea and a great concept. And then later we go on to release Space Slurpees, of course, let them know about it. And I think they did a good job of supporting the launch. We got a little bit of a social media push, which is wonderful. And then the big chance that they took on us was the Vive Focus 3. So this was their business standalone headset, for anybody watching that doesn't know, primarily a commercial product. And so we knew about it. Everybody knew about it. It was announced pretty early. But as a game studio, we didn't really see it in the cards as something we were going to develop for, because it was a business application. Sure. But then we get the call from HTC, and they're like, people learn VR by playing games. We need more games on this headset. Would you be interested in would you be interested in porting to the Vive Focus 3? We're like, yeah, absolutely, sign us up. And so they sent us one, and I was like, can we do it at launch? Launch was like 2 weeks away. They were like, no, there's no way. Like, just we'll get it on the store and it'll be great. I was like, okay. Then I get a call on a Friday and they're like, so if you did finish by Monday, could you do it on launch? And I of course, you say yes to that, right?
Yes.
My co-founder walked in. He's like, "That's a very nice email you wrote to HTC. I'd feel good if I were them, but I'm not HTC. How the heck are you going to pull this off?" I was like, "You don't choose that. You just have to say yes, and then you make it happen." So we made it happen. We ported to the headset in like literally 2 days. Thankfully, HTC uses this very updated system, XR Toolkit. So if you're on the latest, greatest Unity and SDK tools, it's actually not hard to port to their devices. So we did that. We knocked that out. And I think that's really what built us some credibility as a studio to HTC, even though we're teeny tiny. And so that's when a few months later, after the Vive Focus 3 launch, they just set a meeting on my calendar and said, "Hey, we want to talk to you about something." No idea what it was. And then they outline, this is the HTC Vive Flow. This is what we're planning to do. Would you be interested in launching on this device? And then, again, of course, you just say yes.
Yes.
You take every opportunity. Even if somebody's going to throw you a bone, like, you want to make good on it. And so we said, yeah, not only will we do it, we'll do it as soon as possible. And according to them, hopefully I'm allowed to share this, we were literally the first app to be completed and developed for the headset. So then at that point, thank you. And so then at that point, they're like, well, you want to, like, I guess, yeah, you're launching with us. Your app works first. So, like, let's see what we can do. And so that's when, like, then they gave us the opportunity of, all right, we're going to launch. We're going to, put this game in people's hands. And then would you like to join us on this press tour and talk to some of the press about the headset? And so the opportunities came, and I'm just extremely humbled. I'm extremely glad because HTC is a huge company, and I totally understand, honestly, if they'd write us off as an indie studio, but they didn't, and they said, "Hey, these guys they're delivering. Let's give them a shot," and support that. And so it's been a great experience working with them.
And when it comes to this flow, so my anxiety is like 10 out of 10 on like VR hardware announcement days, because like you're bombarded with good, with bad, with information, with hype. Like, it's overwhelming, mostly because you care. If you didn't care, it would be meaningless, but a lot of people care. I want to focus on the positives. What do you see from the flow that adds to the XR scene right now? Like, what did you like about it? Can you give us any details, hands-on, since you've had it? And I don't know anyone that I've spoken with who's used it other than content creators who have posted videos. But from your perspective, what was good about it? What is interesting about this product compared to what's out there?
Yeah. So obviously it is beautiful. It's lightweight. It's very comfortable. I think all those things are like very apparent from the marketing and the images. You can probably tell that. So the thing I'd share that most people didn't realize, and like when we talked to the press in LA and New York City, even the press wouldn't have expected, is this sucker's powerful. And like from a performance perspective, I'm not going to go into spec because I don't think HTC would want me to, but I will just tell you this is we have gotten used to, I listed all the headsets that we're on. We've ported to many headsets at this point, and pretty much every time we port to a headset, we have to do a performance tuning exercise and throttle the game to make it work in mobile VR. Oddly enough, I didn't have to throttle at all for this device. We ran it like right out of the box. The version that we had running off of the Vive Focus 3 just worked on these glasses. And what's amazing about that, a lot of people don't even realize, is all of that processing is in these glasses. And
actually, keep that up for a second, because like I don't look at the hand, look at the headset, just for comparison, because obviously if you see it on a picture, there's not really a way to identify how big it is, but that's actually a lot smaller than I expected when you picked that up.
Yeah. And in fact, let me grab like the Vive Focus 3, for example. Do you mind?
Oh, yeah. Do your thing. And just for the reference, guys, I will link the specs of this headset in the video description. I don't want to keep those secret. I do not have them up right now, but they will be in the video description, so you do know the specs, so you're aware of those.
Yeah, so I think this is what amazed me the most is like this is the Vive Focus 3. You know, very comfortable, very powerful headset. And when you look at it, you would expect it to be powerful. You're not surprised by the field of view and the ability of it. A little dark, but you can kind of see. But then, you get these glasses, and it. I mean, let's just be honest. The expectations are probably set a lot lower. I think people are expecting this to be like an Oculus Go or like the early VR days, and it's not. I mean, this thing like it packs a punch, and even though you use a phone as a controller, to be clear, none of the processing is taking place on the phone. It's all taking place on these guys. And as a developer, that was very impressive to me. And I was like really happy when we ported to this device that it wasn't a performance exercise. Really, the only exercise for us was like rethinking the controls of how we're going to use the phone instead of like a traditional VR 6-off controller.
Can you give any insight to your thoughts on using the phone as a controller? For example, I've seen some people pretty interested, thinking that it's a good idea. I've seen, of course, the opposite, that it's awful. But from someone who's used it, how has it worked for you? What are the positives? And if you could give any negatives, I'd be open to just hearing kind of the constructive feedback on a phone as a controller in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say if it comes to like shipping with a controller, and I think early versions, they looked at 3-dock controllers and who knows what they might do in the future. But as we were developing, when I got the call that they're sticking to the phone, my gut was that was the right call. For this device, is 100% the right call. Because our phones these days, like our accelerometers and gyros are so finely tuned, it is already a great device for tracking movement. And this is intended to be a device that's used on the go, that's used in casual and sometimes even public settings. And I personally wouldn't want to carry a controller with it. And so I think it's a great idea to use the phone with the device. Now, the question of like, well, but is it a good experience to use the phone? And I guess there's probably a lot of comparisons out there to like other mobile, like true mobile VR headsets, not these immersive glasses, that it's not really an apples to apples comparison because this isn't trying to be one of those. This is intended to be a more mobile experience where you can enjoy VR on the go. And I think using the phone's a great choice for that. From a developer perspective, I think you can't look at it and say like, oh, I can't do the things that I can do with a real 6-off controller. It's like, yeah, you can't. So like, how are you going to rethink your content for this device? And for us, that was a challenge we were excited about. I mean, we looked at these things, we felt they were the future, and if we have to reimagine our controls for the game, like that's one of the most fun exercises I've had in months. And so we got a blast out of it. We're like, okay, instead of tracking with the hand, what if we use the rotation of the phone to control the direction of your snake? And what's cool for us is this actually took it back to almost more classic snake mechanics, because now your snake's moving at constant speed. It speeds up as you eat the edibles. So it's a different type of game, and I love that. I love that we are able to use the same concept and IP. We bring the content in front of you, so it's more casual than just full like room scale experience. And so I don't know. My advice to like developers is don't get too upset that it's not the same experience as like a standalone VR headset. Like think creatively of what can you do with this device and what it's uniquely able to do.
Perfect. Before I hijack this conversation a little bit, inputting some thoughts I have that I'd be curious to hear, one last question I have for you about this is, I can't actually, one thing about the phones, I just think it's important to clarify because I don't want anyone to get confused and pre-order this. Please, I will, like I said, I'm going to link the specs to this in the video description. Also note that for the phone, it is required, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is required to set up this device, and it does need to be an Android phone. So please look into phone support on the website before making decisions on this. I think that is important to clarify. That way iPhone users and Samsung users don't just go directly to pre-order this and have problems. Do you know of any rumors of hand tracking or other phone support coming since you've worked with them on this? If you could
yes, share. I'm not HTC, so I definitely can't make any promises, but I can tell you that when we were with the press on the press tour, what was communicated is that absolutely both options are, under investigation, being worked on. I think, a huge part of what HTC was doing is like, this is a new category, this is a new type of device, and so they're wanting to get it out there and start that progress forward, which is admirable. And then I think they're going to make iterations in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, I just think it's important to clarify that because obviously, we are excited when new tech comes out, and personally, and that's why I'm going to hijack this conversation. I think there is a place for things like this, but we still need to clarify because I don't want someone to get the hype train, buy something, and realize that, hey, I can't actually even use this. I think that's important. But that's kind of where I wanted to go with this is that, like, I'll be frank, the device is not for me. That's just, I think a lot of people, but that's not a bad thing. One thing that I'm happy to see is I do think the form factor, it seems like where everyone's going, and I'm all for it, lightweight. But one thing that I want people to take into consideration and use my platform to kind of preach here, look up where an Oculus Quest can be sold. It's very few countries, guys. Like, very few. Like, if you list them off and then take up a map and color them in, it's very little parts of the world. Yes, this is not a device that I think most of my friends are going to be buying or using. However, it does at least open up a very nice form factor and options for more of the world. And I would like to start seeing a little more encouragement of the we than the I in these hardware releases, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree with those statements on multiple fronts. I think this has huge impact for an international market that needs and will embrace this type of device. And I don't think HTC is hiding the fact that like this is not a gaming headset. As far as I know, I think we may even be like the only, if not one, definitely one of the few like true games on the device, because most of like it's not built for that kind of content. And so you're right, like it's not for everybody. It's for it's not for, I think, the typical enthusiasts that jump into VR first. But what people need to realize is that by creating a different type of device, these glasses, what HTC is doing is they're widening the market for people that weren't traditionally interested in VR. And that's a great thing for all of us. The tide rises all ships type of thing. Like, if you look at who HTC was inviting and bringing to these press events, like they're bringing it into a more lifestyle fashion circle to target a mainstream audience that wouldn't normally put on a VR headset. We talked to a lot of Instagram influencers that had never tried VR before, and that's a great thing. If you love VR, you should be excited about that because you want everybody immersed in VR, all types of people immersed in VR, because that's the only way we're going to move the space forward to what we want it to be.
I mean, let's be honest. There's wide swaths of the world, even ones who have access to an Oculus Quest or high-end like VR rigs, that if you showed them a DK1, because of how unfamiliar they are with everything, you'd blow their fucking mind. Like with a DK1, let's just be honest. Like you're not gonna blow my mind with a DK1 right now. It's gonna hurt my eyes and be awful. But you show my grandparents about it, it's gonna blow their mind because they have no reference. It's just anything I can do or anything I can see to get this kind of shit in people's hands. All boats rise, like you said. It's going to help everyone out.
Correct. But the problem with the DK1s and most headsets out there is that not everybody is willing to try them. Yes. They're intimidating. And I've been to conventions where, we've got our headset and we're saying, hey, do you want to try out this game? And somebody's like, I don't think I want to. And they've never tried VR and they're almost not willing to try VR because the headset looks clunky. It's for sure going to mess up their hair. And they're not willing to jump into an experience. But a company ships something that looks like a pair of Epic sunglasses. A lot more people are willing to try this on, which, raises all ships.
I agree. Now, next, that's a good segue, since we're talking about a lot of hardware, is I did want to talk to you about hardware versus software. Now, there are plenty of things to play. Starcade Arcade has plenty, so there's plenty of stuff to play. But I would... in my opinion, there's a lot of headset rumors. I made a tweet about the other day. I mean, there's There's multiple Oculus Quest prototypes that I keep hearing about. The Deckard, Deck Gear. You got all your Magic Leap headsets. You got your Flow. There's a bunch of headsets. What is your view on chicken versus egg debate, hardware versus software? What is the more important impact device that we need to focus on right now? Is it hardware or software, in your opinion?
So is the question, you're talking about softwares in terms of content or software that the actual headset developers are providing?
Good
Can you
question.
elaborate?
Yeah, I should have clarified that. Software in content to be viewed, used, or experienced.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, having quality hardware is definitely hugely important, right? I'm going to pick on Oculus, right? I'm going to say a good thing about them, and then I'm going to critique them a little bit. So, to answer your question. So, if you look at Oculus, they built fantastic hardware, fantastic headset, and really a great experience. Like, Quest 1 was good, Quest 2 was great, and yeah, we owe it to them for opening up the marketplace, bringing in a ton of gamers, bringing in at a price that like people want to try it, and they are great headsets. There's no doubt about that. That's the hardware piece. That's great. Good hardware is good. But then there's content. I think now if I'm to critique Oculus is you see the gatekeeping that Oculus does of preventing every content provider for, equal access on their store and, equal access to selling their applications. I listed you a whole list of stores and headsets that we're providing our games on, and we don't have a single game on the official Oculus store yet. Well, I don't think that's moving the VR space forward because that means that somebody's picking and choosing what content can reach audiences. And when you're picking and choosing content, essentially that's a bias. You're subjecting a bias onto the audience and the population, and you're limiting what can be experienced, what can be created, and I don't think that's healthy.
What do you think?
Was that too strong of a response? But that's just...
Nice.
Yeah, and so
you can say whatever you want.
So that's
here.
why I think, in general, that's why I think, content is super important. There should be a lot of it, quality, and lots of variety of it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, that last part too, the quality and variety. What's your... This kind of goes what we're talking about, but when it comes to curation, should it be open? Should it be heavily curated? Or what's the middle ground? What's that perfect curation formula that helps people find good games, but also explore? Because I think that's the problem. Like, personally, I'm for curation, but there's got to be some type, not the like, here's the wall, you need to beat through it for 10 years to get through it, but there's some type of curation that that guides users, one, to good games, but some other type of curation that guides people to quality fringe, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I understand the question. And it's like, the argument as I hear it is people usually compare their Oculus curation versus Steam VR curation, right? And usually the direction of the argument is Steam is filled with lots of unpolished and hacky games that give her bad performance, and so curation is good to give people good experiences. And I understand the argument, but where I think you need to draw the line on curation is if somebody is deciding if the content is enjoyable or not. If it's a good experience for the store in terms of if the content has value. I think that's where you're overstepping curation. So let me give a different way of looking at it. I think curation is great if you have a standard equal set of criteria that you can give out to developers, if you can give out to content providers. I think in terms of performance checks, whenever you go to submit something on Oculus Store and they do a frame rate check and things like that, that's great. I'll never complain about that because there is a certain bar, there's a certain standard, and you affect people's even health in VR if you don't achieve that standard. So I think those are great. I've got no issue with those types of checks. And I think a good example of what I think is more fair is Sony and PlayStation. Mm-hmm. It's very transparent and it's very clear how to ship a game on PlayStation, and they're not going to block you because they don't like the content. they will not let you ship if it fails to meet a certain standard. And we've seen games that, like even was a game Cyberpunk, like, that's pretty controversial that, it made it through, but then when it failed to meet standards, they even pulled it off, which haven't had to do with the game. I did respect that.
I did too.
Because that's right. Because it did not meet a set of criteria in terms of actual like player expectations and like actual performance. But what they don't do is they don't say, this isn't my type of game, therefore we shouldn't let players purchase it, right? I think that's wrong. And so when you get to committees making decisions about what games should be on a store based off of their evaluation of its value, you're letting people make decisions in determining the value of something, and that's very subjective. I don't think that's very fair.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. My question, which I don't know if this is going to be worded right, because it's such a...
That's okay. Just take a shot, right?
Yeah, and if it's bad, we're just going to nix this. But my question would be, in my opinion, I don't think there's no formula. Like, everyone's figuring it out as we go. We're building a plane and flying it while it's still being built, basically. A lot of people. How do you identify... I agree with you that you shouldn't be able to curate what is good entertainment or not. You know what I mean? That's hard. But at the same time, you got to make a guess in a way. Basically, if we're building the plane as we're flying it, there still needs to be, there's risk that you can take and risk that you can't. How do we verify what is even remotely positive to be on a store? Does that make sense? Like, where's the cutoff? I'm with you, but there's got to be one bottom line where it's like, this is not possible to be on our store yet if we're curating.
So we're saying like if the space is new.
Let's use App Lab for example, right? There's going to be there's a line where hopefully anything. I mean, we saw what's his name? What Scared Ghost put on, just a cube, right? It's just a rant. He just put a gray cube and made it to App Lab. I'm glad that doesn't make it to a store, right? And he never intended it to, so I don't feel bad telling him that. So let's use that as a baseline for, that's definitely an experience that shouldn't go to a store. What is the bare minimum that should make it to a store, in your opinion? Is it the intent, trying to put together a cohesive, entertaining experience? Is that kind of the baseline?
I don't know. I'm not trying to be controversial, but what if a cube is a desirable experience? Like, who are we to say? Like, NFTs and art and like what is a desirable experience? I mean, if there's somebody in the world who wants to purchase a cube VR game, like, I'm not sure why we'd stop them, to be honest. I mean, we look at it, we feel like it's a silly experience. In this case, we know that the creator itself, did it more as a test rather than a desirable experience. But I'd be afraid to make that call myself, because there's games that I don't personally like, and if I decide that I don't put it on the store because I don't personally like them, or I think it's a good experience, like, how do I know if that's my bias or if that's factual?
So would you say that instead of a more optimal way, I won't say the most, a more optimal way, instead of curating the content free on a store, find a better way to curate visibility, in the sense that you can have your top list, your top sellers, whatever. That way it's safe, it's sound, and generally speaking, you're going to get a decent experience. But some type of other curated list where maybe users have more say on it, provide better input on these experiences they've tried and their feedback on it. Is that a better option or a possible alternative?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Whether it's users' votes or ratings, or I think some type of visibility is needed, because right now I'd argue that there's almost no visibility
on any platform, or are we
I'm talking about App Lab.
yeah, I had a feeling.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. It's obviously like I've been using VR from like 15, 16, and Steam top Steam charts is still the exact same as it borderline was back in the day. It's very hard to find games. And I wish there was a way where users could somehow curate a list to show me some stuff to play, but somehow avoid, because if we have users give their feedback, unfortunately, you're going to get more feedback on a top-selling game. I need to find some way to get feedback on games that are not getting as much quantity of reviews. I think that's the tricky situation, is how can I find games that are not getting the quantity but are still getting the quality of reviews?
Yeah, I think that's very true. And in general, I mean, that's a problem with the whole, I guess you could say problem, but it's kind of a problem with the whole game industry that, I can stop picking on Oculus, that as a whole, it's true that gaming can be a little bit of winner takes all. I mean, if you look at Steam reports, it's like, if you're not in the top 5 games of a certain genre, then the income steeply drops off. And it's true that usually only top titles are the ones that make like really admirable amounts of income. And so it's a hard industry as a whole, and to get in the top spot is hard regardless, which is why I think when things are hidden, you've basically made it impossible.
Yeah, it does make it difficult. So moving on just to the last couple things here, I think this is a good transition. When it comes to marketing VR games, which I would say you guys do a really good job. Visibility wise, I see all your stuff, which is really good because I can't say the same for everyone else. I see all your stuff. But for aspiring developers, VR developers, or really any game developers, screw it. For anyone who's marketing their own games the way you guys are, what best practices or tips can you say for the VR? I'm going to say specifically. Let's stick specifically to VR developers. What direction can you give them, as well as direction to the audiences and customers to look for in marketing to find more games and find other experiences and get their word out? Like, I think it's really important for someone like you who's done this for a while to give that input, because it's really important to not only developers who are trying to market their game, but how do customers find people like you who may not be put on the main stores? Yeah.
So I'll give a generic answer and then I'll kind of explain what I mean. Yeah. I would say the number one thing I tell developers who are trying to market their games is you can only be you, and so you have to find what's marketable for your studio and for your games. And we've even received consultation. Actually, Oculus helped set us up, so thank you there. Don't forever cancel me. I do. There are good things about working with them too. But like, one of the things that we got from this marketing consultation, the biggest feedback and takeaway I got is like, there are studios that do an excellent job of marketing themselves, but you almost can't replicate it. They almost do it because that works for them, and then whatever works for you, you have to double down on, which means experiment with all kinds of stuff and then figure out what it is. So like, if I just take us as a case study, you would not believe the number of things that we have tried. My co-founder is extremely experimental and just like has tried all kinds of bizarre ideas, from like, let's take our music, let's make them as Beat Saber maps so that people can, see the content there and then hopefully drive them towards their games. That was like one thing that we tried. We hired a cosplay creation artist, Rebecca, to create a Space Slurpees themed cosplay, which she created this like amazing Chinese dragon of a Slurpee. And we've tried a number of things that are like, I don't know, maybe this will go viral, maybe this will work, we'll try it. And the list goes on of bizarre marketing tactics. Most of them did not work. The one thing that worked for us, and we've even tried like mixed reality CGI videos and tried that for a little while with our character Orbit. And we enjoyed those things and they're good experiences, but I don't think we saw any kind of ROI until TikTok. So I think that's where you're probably most familiar with our content. Even if you've seen like the rehashed videos on Twitter, is what worked for us was the two of us are just, I don't know, we're an interesting duo and on camera. I think that comes out. And so people enjoy seeing us as developers even more than the games itself. And so people responded really well when we started posting TikTok videos just of us day in the life. As silly or ridiculous as it is, doesn't matter. That's what people enjoyed. And that's what the consultation said, was like, your TikTok's killing it. You just got to keep doing that. And And so that's what we do is we post TikToks, we do it to whatever trending sound there is, we do it to whatever skits we come up with. And that works for us because that's something that people responded to, that people like about us. There are things that other people do that I wish I could do. Like some people have amazing Discords and like these really cool communities built on Discord. And we love everybody in our Discord, but like we haven't been able to pull off the level of interactivity that I see other developers do. And I'm not going to beat myself up for not having that. I don't have to chase that. I can lean into what we know is working, and we know that TikTok is converting to sales. We know that it's getting our name out there. So we film a TikTok a day.
I'm glad you brought that up, the know you're converting to sales, because I've spoken with a few developers. I won't name them, but there was a big aversion to TikTok because of, to them, and they did show me examples, so they came with proof. I can't doubt them for their reasoning, that it was very difficult to prove that TikTok was converting to sales. What advice would you give them on maybe converting that funnel to an actually action?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say. Let me think about like what's the best way to convert. I just know that it does because we can directly see the data, and this is just something that we track. That when a TikTok does well, and inevitably somebody in the comments is like, "Okay, well, you weird developer, what games do you make?" And then we tell them, and then they're like, "Cool, I bought Space Slurpees," and we're like, "Okay," a little bit surprised, but great, that's awesome, thank you. Or like, "Oh, I downloaded Virus Popper," and sure enough, the data correlates. If I'm going to overlay the views on our TikTok channel with the downloads, it's the only thing that's really working for us. It's the only thing we can like consistently track a correlation to is the sales to TikTok. And so I guess going back to where I said like do whatever works, it's definitely good to dive into the data and know if the things you try have impact and measure that so you can kind of get a return on investment assessment.
I mean, I'm a broken record at this point. I feel like the last like 5 of these, so like 5 weeks in a row, I brought up TikTok. I'm just so bullish on it. I think it's amazingly organic. And yes. I think VR and organic is like hand in hand because it is a lot of enthusiasts and it's passionate people who play VR right now. I mean, these people are taking big risks. This is a big change. Just like we talked about the first story. VR is really different. So these people are taking a risk just by touching the equipment, and the organicness of VR and the organicness of TikTok. I'm just extremely bullish on it. Excited to see where that goes. Looking at the time, we got time for whatever, but I always like to end it at the end to give you the floor. If there's any topics that we're passionate about that we haven't brought up that you wanted to get into, is kind of the ode to VR section. I know that's putting you on the spot, but there's usually something we may have missed.
Sure. I guess, if people are watching or new to the VR community, it really is a fun community. There's just so many great people in the space. I think like as an example, we were invited by Max Knorr and Lucas to come out to the AR house while we were in LA for the press tour. And, they're a fun group of creatives. I love what they're doing. A whole bunch of AR mixed reality artists packed into a mansion in LA. So that was a great experience. But it's a good example of just like how many people in the community have been welcoming and helpful. And, I want to encourage more of that attitude. And it doesn't have to be a competition. The tide raises all boats.
I wanted to give a little shout out to both of them since for people who don't know what he's talking about, the AR house is, I believe, in LA. Am I wrong there?
It is. Yeah. It's in LA.
And if you're listening, Lucas, I better get invited when I'm over on the West Coast. But Lucas is the developer behind Where Thoughts Go, if anyone wants to try that game. And you brought up Max. I know she's doing a charity.
Yeah. So she created the Lunch Hour VR, and then she's now about to go. She's helping fund it, or she's working on a project in Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, just because I'm trying to search her right now real quick, but for what she's doing, she has messaged me, and I'm terrible at getting back to people lately. But what I'm going to do, guys, if you do want to hear about her charity, I think it is really worthwhile. I am going to link that down in the video description. So just because you brought her up in the AR house, I really did want to bring that up and make sure
totally.
that that charity's known about. But just to pick your brain real quick, I am not super familiar. Like, I love the concepts of AR and things that I see, but I don't follow it as much. But there is an interesting debate or conversation about the is AR and VR two different sides of the same coin, or is it drastically different to you?
I think they're two different needs in the same space. If I look at VR, like I'm not going to say one's better than the other, because I think they both lend itself to two different types of experiences. I think VR lends itself to when I want to disappear into a new world, then I need VR. And then AR lends itself to when I want to see the world that I'm in transformed, I need AR. And I like both of those. So I'm not going to pick a favorite, because I both want to go to a new world and I both want to transform the old world that I'm in. I like both of those concepts. And so I don't think one's going to go away. I've heard like, oh, AR will overtake VR. And I'm like, I think you'll have both. Yeah, and that's a good thing.
I'm with you too. I think we'll have always both. And obviously I'm very familiar with VR. AR is not something that I've been able to dabble in too much. When it comes to AR, just to end on some opinions on that, I'd be curious, like VR, complete immersion. I'm cool with that. It's standard. It's what I'm going for when I put the headset on. With AR, you see the mock-up drafts, like the mock-up videos you see, which are beautiful, but they're quite overwhelming in information. Where you don't have to pull any specifics, but if you've seen videos, where's like that sweet spot where AR is super beneficial in your mind and like really useful value added to the world, versus where does it get just dystopian, overbearing, and you don't really even want to pay attention to it?
Yeah, I think the line is just if you're very aware and careful with user privacy. I think that's the most important thing. And so when I look at AR experiences, it's great to have all that information at hand. Let's just do that gut check of like,
yes,
are people okay with you having that information, and make sure that it's easy for them to opt out and not provide whatever information they're uncomfortable with. That's just something that I think about. In terms of how much information to put out there, I don't know, I guess that's up to the user.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's always been the big thing. Like I'll be honest, I did get this is not AR, by the way, what I'm about to say. So if anyone in the comments, don't at me about this shit. Like the Ray-Ban smart glasses, they're not AR, but the question of opting in and opting out of information sort of applies to that. I did get them. I have returned them because I realized I'm never going to use. They just ended up turning into sunglasses for me, which I don't need. I already have Ray-Bans. I don't need another stupid set. Yeah. But it was still interesting to me when I used them. They were mostly for like off-road bike rides and stuff where I'm feeling more confident. I'm not really doing anything, but there was a time in a mall where I wanted to record something, but there's a shitload of people in the background looking right at me, and it did go through my mind. I'm like, it's no different than me pulling out my phone. It's no different than me recording them, taking a photo, but the ambiguity of them not knowing I was doing it and being opt out, I felt a little leery on it. And it's something I think about a lot when AR starts becoming prevalent, is it needs to be my responsibility probably to take the lead on other people's privacy, which I hope people understand how much responsibility they may have as AR starts, where other people don't know about it, that we have quite a big responsibility on our hands to do right by our fellow humans.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't want to get too far into that, because that's a rabbit hole that I'm not near prepared for at all. But we are pretty much rolling at time here. I do want to give you the floor to let everyone know, and all links, by the way, everyone, it's all going to be in the video description, but please let everyone know where they can find you and what you want to end on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So please look us up on social media. The handle's at Starcade Arcade, spelled on the shirt. You can pause, write it down. Pretty easy. Anything helps. Like, even if you don't buy our games, you're helping us out a lot by following us. That's something that's looked at by these companies and helps us. If you want to know what we're talking about in terms of TikTok, definitely check us out on TikTok. There's some wild content. Don't judge me, but we have fun. I'm told nobody's grading our TikToks, so it's pretty unfiltered and a good time. But yeah, you can also look up our games too. Download them. Virus Popper, Space Slurpees, App Lab, and other headsets. And stay tuned. We've got a lot of fun things planned.
Hell yeah, brother. Alex, I appreciate you stopping by. I've said it a billion times, but all links of his will be in the video description, so please check that out. It's all there. And if you want smaller versions of this so you can take in everything he has to say, but in bite-sized chunks, we'll put this on the Eric Present Clips channel starting on Monday. Monday the 18th is when the clips will start going up. So look forward to sharing this information with everyone. Thank you for doing what you're doing, man. I've been following you for a long time. I think you've got the right idea. Like, the more I keep playing games, there are a couple hardcore games I play 24/7, but I play only those hardcore games. And then my other time, I really enjoy just stuff that I can relax and have a lot of fun in. So I think you're doing a tremendous amount of good for VR, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely, I guess, closing thoughts is more and more I'm proud of what we do because I think there's value in entertainment. And, you know, I like to believe we really are bringing some good in the world with what we create. And so that's what motivates me.
Hell yeah, brother. With that being said, that's going to be it, guys. As always, we'll see you next time, Space Cowboys. Peace.